Call the meeting to order at 7:00 p.m. Jennifer, can we get a roll call, please?
Ms. Grisham,
Yes.
Ms. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Patel, Ms. Spector Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Unical,
Yes.
and Ms. Hughes.
Thanks everyone for being here. The first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like to have removed from the consent agenda to new business? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Take that. Second.
Second. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Can't do two things at
We've
once.
given you all too much to do here. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Grisham,
Yes.
Ms. Oliver,
Yes.
Ms. Spector Bishop,
Yes.
and Ms. Unical.
Yes. Great. Moving into public comment. I see Grace has joined us again. Hi, Grace. Would you like to make any comments? Thank you. Okay, moving into staff reports.
Look at that. We're already like halfway through the agenda.
Right.
It's amazing.
Mission.
So a couple just quick updates, everyone, and we mentioned this last month, but everyone should have gotten the statement of economic interest form emailed to them, and please remember to fill it out. And this is the form that they changed it a couple years ago. Everyone has filled it out before, but if you have any trouble, I still have like the little cheat sheet stuff that the attorney drafted for us not a cheat sheet, but that explains in more detail kind of what each question means. So let me know if you need that. And then Jennifer is going to be reaching out. She may already have. Summer reading is just around the corner. I know that seems weird because it just snowed today, but asking for everyone to tell us what size t-shirt you would like for the summer reading t-shirts. And so we please make sure to share that so that you can be decked out and have all the fun stuff for summer. We also, in reaching back out to Schaumburg, they then asked us if we could delay until later and meet in July or August. So Jennifer is working on dates for that, and we'll be reaching out. We also received a request. There's a new private school, Celebree School, that is opening here in Northbrook, and it is apparently the 100th Celebree School. I'm not familiar with the school, but they invited us to a ribbon cutting on April 7th at 11 a.m. And they are doing a collection to collect 100 books for the Northbrook Public Library for the celebration of the 100th school. And it's also during National Library Week. So if you are available on April 7th at 11 a.m., and I'll send this out again as a reminder, please let us know and we'll RSVP. I will not be going, and Kelly is checking to see if this is something that she can put on her calendar. But they would like to have someone obviously from the library. So we'll find someone to send if they'd like to present us with the books. And then I also mentioned in the packet just an upcoming partner program that we have with GBN, which is for the GBN Entrepreneur Pitch Night. It is really fun. If you've ever been to one of the ones we had here, it's really cool. And these kids are amazing. And so our pitch night is on April 16th. And I, of course, did not write down the time. I believe it's at 6:30 or 7. But if you would like to go to that, let us know and we can register you. On to stuff that is not as fun. I wanted to share that on March 14th, President Trump did issue an executive order calling for the elimination of IMLS. He does not have the authority to eliminate it. That would require an act of Congress. So the executive order calls for it to be reduced in as many ways possible as are permissible under law. So I wanted to just talk a little bit more and have some more information I'll be emailing out to the board tomorrow. Because we've already gotten some questions from patrons about what is the impact on libraries, on this library specifically. And the short answer is there's no direct impact, but there's certainly indirect impacts. So the way that funding works is that the federal money from the Institute for Museum and Library Services distributes money to each of the states. Ours is about $5 million and goes to the Illinois State Library. which is overseen by the Secretary of State. The state library budget is $50 million. So this is about 10% of the overall state budget. That $5 million goes to fund a number of different things, including some of it being sent to Rails and to the Heartland Library System for their operations, as well as for things like public construction grants, Directors University. Some of the money that they've given us for Illinois Libraries Present has come from IMLS, and they also use it for things like the Talking Book and Braille service. So they were aware that this was likely something that might happen and have been talking for about 4 months now about what, if needed, what things could be cut. So they have a plan, and core services, there are some things in the state statutes that must be carried on. One of those things is delivery. So anytime you put a book on hold and you get something from another library, that is paid for by the library system. They are statutorily obligated to provide this service. So that would not be cut. Things that might be cut might be things like continuing education, consulting services for small and rural libraries that don't have money maybe to pay for an attorney, and things of that nature. So while we know delivery itself has to happen, how it happens could be reduced. There could be impacts on this. And then, as always, there's always the long-term impacts. We saw this when we didn't have a state budget for 2 years and had to pause a number of things. Getting those back up and running is always very much a Herculean effort. And it takes, I would say it's only been in the last couple of years, and it was over a decade ago that happened. So we know that there will be long-reaching consequences, even if this does get, flipped back. Today, this afternoon, I learned that DOJ actually went to the IMLS offices and started sending employees home. They appointed an acting director and have already started reaching out to states to restrict grant funding. Now, as has been the case in a number of other scenarios like this, there will likely be a lawsuit that will likely overturn and staff will be back. In the meantime, of course, the disruption will continue, and I anticipate that libraries, and that Illinois would be one of the states targeted for this restriction of funds for any of the larger grants and other things that we got, in addition to the regular $5 million that's appropriated by Congress for IMLS. All of our representatives and senators have always been strong supporters of libraries. Every year we send letters during the appropriation process asking for them to sign on to support IMLS. They almost always do. I would say that in times when they don't, it is not because of a lack of want, but a lack of realizing that they missed it. And that is on us to make sure that they are doing that. So this is definitely something that I know will certainly be impacting, and that we will expect to get a lot of comments from people. And this is something we'll be talking about with all of the staff. We've already shared some information with staff and are working on talking points for the community. And Linda and I are talking about some kind of social media stuff that we can do to educate the community about what the impact is for us as a public library. So this, I would encourage all of you as citizens and voters to reach out to your elected officials. As I mentioned, I have an email that you guys will get tomorrow morning that has a bunch of stuff. I feel like I was email bombing you guys a little bit this week with information on other stuff. So I have it set to go out tomorrow and has more information, along with a great FAQ page from the American Library Association and some information from Rails that kind of gets at more what is the impact locally. There isn't, other than speaking up and understanding what the impact is, I do think this is going to, in libraries, cause, understandably, a fair amount of worry. I think it is important, though, that we focus on maintaining operations, focus on staying calm, because it is chaos that is being looked for. And if we push back on with factual information and we do speak up, but we do not allow it to completely destroy us, then that goal will not be realized. And so that is the approach I will be taking with all of our staff here, and urging other directors that I talk with about all of this to be taking as well. We can all recognize that this is not fun, and freaking out about it isn't going to actually help anyone. And so how can we be proactive? So that was just a lot of information. I'm going to pause. I have one other update from my report that I wanted to share as well, but I wanted to just get a sense from the board if there's any information that it would be helpful for us to share with all of you, so that you feel that you are informed and aware of what is going on without it being an avalanche. I tend to want to give everyone all the information. So what level of information would you like to have about all of this?
I think it sounds like you're going to be doing that and making sure we can speak knowledgeably about this. I want to express my opinion that while it is important that we don't freak out and we focus on serving the community, I think we also, to the extent there is an impact, need to make it extremely clear
Oh, yes.
whose fault that is and where that's coming from, and why those services no longer exist, or why, why we can no longer provide those services. I don't think we should be pulling any punches about that.
Talking about the impact and relating it to real world. Linda and I were talking about today, thinking about delivery. If delivery had to be restricted, people don't think about it. It's an unseen thing that you just expect to happen seamlessly. Educating people about what that would mean. What if we could only get delivery 1 day a week?
And I think to the extent if that happened and there were complaints, I think among our FAQs and
Yep.
our talking points should be a very clear talking point about where the responsibility lies for that reduction in
Yeah.
services.
And how
Not
does
us.
this impact each of us individually?
Yeah.
It's, otherwise you kind of get this glazed over look, but that would make a difference if
Yes.
delivery or whatever it is. So I think it's important to personalize it.
And we are very lucky in Illinois. Tennessee, their state library takes their funding and gives it to the libraries for collection development, which means that the state library will be monitoring what libraries are ordering and putting restrictions that the federal government are saying what can and cannot be on library shelves. We are very lucky in Illinois that we don't have that issue. Not every state is as lucky. And I think that it is also really good to point out just how strong our protections are for intellectual freedom in standing against censorship, because not every state is this fortunate.
I'd also like to add that while I think our impact may be less because of where we're located and what our funding is, I think we owe it to the other smaller branches in Illinois to advocate for them as well. So while our personal impact may not be as great, it could be very significant for more rural communities. And I think it's up to us to advocate for them.
Good point. Yeah.
Andrew Carnegie built over 1,000 public libraries, which was amazing. Many of those libraries are still being used today. They are over 100 years old and require often a lot of TLC. Oftentimes, construction money goes for making necessary improvements to be ADA compliant, to maintain historic buildings. And so that is absolutely one of those things that will be impacted. And as we know, delayed maintenance on buildings only compounds. And so yeah, but that is thank you for saying that, Maura. That's a very good point. So, I have one more thing to talk about. I feel like I don't have a good segue to go from really hard stuff to I'm going to be gone in April. And wanted to share with the board kind of the plan and give you guys a little bit more information, and to thank you for your willingness, yes, it is accrued time that I have, and I recognize that me being gone for a month is, you know, does require some finagling. So, thank you guys for being willing to, allow me to do that. And so I wanted to just share, obviously Kelly is going to be in charge in my absence. You all know she's very capable, but I wanted to outline, and I included this in your blue folder, kind of who's going to be responsible for what. It's much as you would expect, and Kelly will be the main point of contact for any board related matters. Jennifer, of course, will be here as well for any communication stuff and to help with some of the other things. I wanted to assure you all that we will have, operational continuity and continuing things in as much a normal and streamlined plan as possible. So Kelly will be overseeing the regular, which she often does when I'm on vacation anyway, the all staff emails that we send out every week, the all staff meetings, our management meetings, our leadership team meetings. So business will continue as per normal. One thing that I do have a need for, though, is that we need to have one of our board officers volunteer to sign the small checks, which I usually sign. From an internal controls perspective, Anna can sign them, but we don't think that's a good idea. And so I'm hoping that someone would be willing to sign.
I'm happy to do so, and I'm really close by. So
Okay,
if
thanks,
it's
Maura. Yeah. It's usually between 50 and 60 checks. Not too bad.
So I'll just reach out when they're ready.
Okay, that's good.
Great. Thanks, Laura. And then that way Anna can still review everything and then we can still maintain those strong internal controls. I did want to lay out, just so you're aware, kind of some of the projects and what, some
Maura,
things.
are you an officer?
Oh,
She's not a
I am
signer.
until, oh, no.
No,
I'm
'cause
not.
you're
I'm
not an
not.
attorney.
No,
Barbara is.
Right, I'm not.
Maura,
So I can't?
you cannot, because
Okay.
you're not a signer.
I'll do it. And here twice a week.
Um,
And I can do it.
I
Nels
mean, I'm
wanted to.
happy to do it, except
Anybody
I'm not
can-
around on the day.
Yeah,
That's the thing. I mean,
Barbara just offered.
It's easy. I can come whenever you.
You know what? When the checks are ready, I'll text the three of you and whoever responds first can come in. And I can come in the evening, like it'll be fine.
Anna lives very far.
I mean,
That's a generous thing.
I'll email everybody and just say, the checks are ready.
Fight for it.
Yes. Please do not fight on library property. That's all I ask. So some of the projects that will be continuing that we have as part of the strategic plan, like the stats dashboard that I'm giving you an update on tonight. The elevator repair work, which we hope will be done. Anna has been on TKE. Kelly will be continuing to work with Jaffe. Becky will be working with Anna on rolling out the pay equity audit, which we will be sharing with the board next month. We do, of course, have the trustee appointment, which Kelly will be working with Jennifer on to coordinate with the meetings and stuff. And well, anyway, you guys can read all of this. I don't know why I'm saying all of the things that you can read with your, basically everything that can continue, will continue. One thing that we know we do need to continue to pause is the master plan. This is something that Anna and I still have not had a moment to get together and actually develop a new timeline for. That is something that we will do when I get back from vacation. We also have a plan for the volunteer program, but we won't be working on getting that rolling until after I come back. Ditto with some of the other stuff like the building automation system, which was on the project list, and the parking lot improvements, which we have to wait until the asphalt
The
plants
plants open in April, is
So-
what I learned.
So yeah, that will likely be sometime in May. And then some of the goals that I had from last year that Becky and I do have on our to-do list is the staffing analysis and benefits review, which we will look at in the fall. So we're pushing those out just a little bit more since there've been a lot. Becky has done a lot of HR projects in her first year here. But the next big thing we'll be focusing on is the employee handbook review, which Becky may be able to start in April. It just depends on if the stars align and if people behave and there aren't emergencies. So I wanted to share all of this with you so that you guys were just aware of what was going on. And then if you have questions, Kelly is going to be your best point of contact, and to see if anyone has any questions on any of that or on anything else related to my vacation.
I don't have any questions, but I also want to make sure that we proactively thank Kelly and Anna and Becky and Linda and Jennifer and everyone else who is going to beyond step into these roles and help us. And I'm also very grateful that you are taking time off and role modeling that for the team.
Thank you. Linda and I had a really
And
good
to
talk
just
today about
remind
it.
you that if any of us can be of help in any way at any time, please don't
Yes.
hesitate to call.
Thank
I mean, I'm not sure we can add anything, but we're extra hands and certainly hearts. So please call on us.
Mhm. Thank you. And with that, I realize I skipped my first thing, which I wanted to just talk a little bit about, give the board a little bit more of an update on last week with our room booking. It was uneventful as we reported the next day, and happy that it was so. I have been working this week on calling everyone. I've already emailed everyone, every patron that had reached out about this most recent room booking, and have been working on calling everyone back. I still have a couple more calls to make tomorrow, and wanted to just thank the board. This started 6 months ago, and it has been a challenging time for all of us, and we have learned a lot. And I think that we have stood up for intellectual freedom, as we know we want to do. And I have been very happy with how I feel we have been able to navigate this. Kelly's going to be scheduling a debrief so we can, for everyone that worked that evening, working with Jaffe has been incredibly helpful in helping us understand the ways that we can best respond to these situations. I certainly hope that we don't ever have this level of community outrage over something again, but I think it's important to recognize that the world we are living in right now is one that is full of a lot of tension and challenges. And so we can't assume that there won't be other things. But I think that now we have a stronger toolkit for managing those while still remaining strong to our principles of ensuring public safety and upholding intellectual freedom. I think that we've also developed stronger relationships with members of the police force, and that has been incredibly helpful in understanding how they operate and finding ways that we can work together in ways that will make sure that we can maintain our operations, but recognizing that they will make decisions that are outside of our control, like determining what to do outside of our building, that is their decision to make, and that we recognize that. And so I think that it's just helped us gain more clarity and understanding about what our role needs to be and what the role of the police in the village is. I also think that, you know, Linda and I talked about this today, one of the big takeaways is that we want and have always wanted to respond to everyone in the community, and how we do that in ways that are helpful and not harmful is really important. And that sometimes when the volume is so much that you have to pause and that you can't respond to everyone was a more painful lesson to learn, but I also think an important one. And that we can still look for ways. Like, it was really important to me that, you know, I got maybe, I don't know, 22 phone calls this time in the last week and a half. And taking the time to call those people back, which thankfully I was like, I gotta call them on Monday. And Kelly's like, or you could just just keep calling a few a day in between meetings and stuff, but prioritizing that and recognizing that there are still things we can do, while also recognizing that we don't have to put out a statement every single time for every single thing, and that sometimes not, and sometimes we cannot share information because of public safety, but that we better understand how we can try and inform the community while also maintaining public safety and try to be responsive, because that is our role here. You know, in the org chart, it has community at the top, and that is who the board reports to. And I report to the board, and we all report to the community. And so I am very proud of what we have learned, and also how we have tried to still be really listening to the community, and very much look forward when I get back in May to reviewing going through the room booking, the room rental policy review process that we talked about, because I think that that will give us even more of an opportunity to hear from the community and to talk about things and look for ways that we can strengthen what I think is already a really strong policy and process. So I also have to just say that Stacy has started as board president in May when we had chair yoga. And it was only a couple months later that all of this happened, and that her skill in her real day job was just invaluable during all of this. And her help in navigating all of this has been just so incredibly wonderful, and so appreciated by staff. The number of staff I've heard from throughout the building saying like, oh my gosh, that was so great. Like, and Stacy walked around and talked with people, and this back in September, but having her and, you know, helping to share information out in the larger community and brainstorm what we wanted to do with these sometimes really challenging decisions we had to make was really, really valuable and very appreciated. And all of you supported us, and this was not easy for any of us. And I so appreciate everything the board did to stand for the core library principles of intellectual freedom, even when it was really hard. And so that is not easy. And I think that it shows just how great a board this is, which I already knew, but it just further solidifies it. So thank all of you. And I'm happy to answer any other questions on this or anything else in my report or on any other part. I covered a lot of ground.
Do something about the room booking.
Okay.
First of all, a huge thank you to everyone who's been involved in it. Because I don't even know a fraction of what's going on in the meetings. One thing that did leave me feeling uneasy was the lack of information about the closure of the parking lot to the community. And I understand that there are security concerns and that there were multiple parties weighing in on that. But it just seems that if we're going to close the parking lot to the patrons, we need to let them know. We don't have to go through a whole explanation of why it's happening maybe, but I think we have to let them know, because if you come up and you're expecting to be able to park right there and you're not, and there isn't parking nearby or whatever the situation is, it leads to confusion, and it seems like we're covering something up, which I don't think the library should be in the business of doing, and I don't think was our intention to do
No.
that. So I think we have to, hopefully nothing like this is going to ever come up again, but if something similar does, I would like us to be more proactive about getting out in front of the information.
Yeah, very, very fair point. And we'll certainly, hopefully, again, never have to, but yes. And one thing we noticed when there was some incorrect information being shared that the library was closed. And so we did say, you know, and did start pushing information out of like, hey, we are actually open. And it was very helpful. A lot of people, a lot of community members on social media were like, I was just there, they're not closed. So that I think was even better than anything, you know, than the stuff that we pushed out. But I think this is always, and this is a new area for us of balancing, how do we keep people informed and also make sure that we are not perhaps sharing information that could potentially cause safety risks. And I think,
Right, and I
Yeah.
think just sort of saying that the parking lot is closed.
Yeah,
And.
and you'll have to
and
park here
access-
and here.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, would have been helpful, and it would have reduced any sort of undue speculation as well, that people
Yeah.
don't have to be wondering about whether or not you're open,
Right.
what's going on, and
Yeah.
then gossiping, as people in this community like to do, so.
What? Every community, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
But yes. Thank you, Maura.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Kate? Okay. Moving into board member reports.
Well, I attended a fabulous presentation on the
pigeons?
lunar eclipse.
Pigeons?
No,
Oh, I
you
missed
know,
that one.
there was no pigeons, but it was a fabulous presentation about the lunar
Can
eclipse.
pigeons see the lunar
You know,
eclipse?
I did not ask that question, but I learned a lot and I, you know, the full house and lots of extremely enthusiastic young folk.
Hey.
And it was, you know, it was wonderful.
You're not going to share a fun lunar eclipse fact with us?
Well, that it was a blood moon. Really,
What?
at
Yeah.
the full eclipse, it was red, not dark. So that was interesting to me. So.
I attended the League of Women Voters candidate forum on Sunday, and Erin and all of the staff did a great job. Many community members were here. It was a pretty full house, especially for the D225 forum, a little bit lighter of an audience for the village trustee forum, but both were well attended. Questions were great. And I think the library staff did a great job of getting people in and managing the event. And of course, I was here Thursday night and would be remiss if I didn't mention how great the staff was. From start to finish, and making sure that patrons were being taken care of and questions were answered, and that everybody knew what was happening and how to best communicate. And truly an impressive group of people. It's hard to get any large staff on the same page, and it felt like a well-oiled machine on Thursday night that I hope to never have to operate again.
So same to that.
Any other board? Okay. Moving into unfinished business, we are going to get a sneak peek of the statistics board.
Yeah, so I am going to go up to the. With Mallory Edgar from Fifth Star Collective now for the last few months on updating our statistics. The goal of this is something that is board and also stronger how we are collecting and maintaining our data. And so we finished phase 1 in January. And one of the things that we did during that phase is we looked at every piece of data we collected. We looked at how we collected it. We looked at how we could streamline the collection so that there were fewer hands touching it and making it a much cleaner and smoother process. And then Mallory worked on creating some forms and new ways for data that we have to manually enter to make it much easier and simpler. She then has put together on the back end a really beautiful spreadsheet and that will be able to expand upon the data dashboard that we have now, but that will put everything in one place and make it much easier to manage and look at trends. She is going to be coming next month and presenting the full dashboard to the board, but I want to share with the board now what okay. So this is just a mock-up of the front page of the dashboard. And so as you can see, it has a couple different colors in it to kind of group things by section. It'll then be broken down into more, but what this does is gives everyone an immediate snapshot of how many card holders do we have? What's our circulation at? How busy are the meeting rooms? I'm gonna just scroll down a little. You know, how many books do we actually own? And this way, this is going to be a really easy snapshot that if someone needs an immediate thing, it will always be here. And it will also show us how are we doing compared this year to last year? We will have more trend data and be able to look more deeply at stuff on other pages that Mallory is working on putting together, which you can see at the top. But ultimately, the goal of this is to make it much more user-friendly and to share it more broadly with the public. And then also to use this to help us as we are communicating the work we're doing around the strategic plan and the activities and initiatives we're taking so that we can show the direct correlation between what the community asks for, what we put in the strategic plan, and how that is playing out and how people are actually using everything. So this, again, not the final version, but
Not entirely real numbers either.
oh yeah, sorry. Thank you. I should mention that. Yes, yes, Mallory is, yeah, the mock-up is not the actual, so I'm gonna just pause here and see, and of course, Mallory will be here next month and we'll be able to speak much more eloquently and in depth. But to see if the board has any questions or anything further I can answer about this.
Does this update in real time from those spreadsheets, or do you
Yes.
gather your information and then do a dump into the?
It updates in real time.
Okay, and are there, are those others are on this page, live links that if you click on one, you get more detail, or is this kind of?
Yeah, so if you see, I'm gonna just point at the top here. So you're not clicking here.
Okay.
This is a static page. We asked her to make it static so that we could more easily save it as like a PDF. And I don't, with the way Looker Studio, which is Google's like dashboard design space that we're using. So then you can go into more detailed and we'll give you trend data and then get it even into more granular. So like right now it says that there are 20,920 cardholders. Well, how many of those are businesses? How many of those are kids? In the detailed page, it'll have the breakdown and show like, oh, and this is what it looked like over the past year. And this is how, so you'll be able to go page by page and dive in that way. I don't know if it can be linked though. We haven't actually talked about that. So that could be something we could ask to like take this and then have it take to that. I just don't know if that'll then mess it up if we want to just print
I
it out.
just know that, we all work very hard to make sure anything on our websites is clear and our users can
Yes.
find everything. My
100%.
experience has been, no matter what you do, there are folks who cannot find the information.
100%.
I realize that it's.
I had that
right-
today.
yeah, I realize it's about an inch up, but I was gonna say you'd be amazed, but I bet you wouldn't at how many people will say, why?
I didn't see
I
that.
didn't see anything. So I just, I had assumed, and I'm not saying it should be this way, that like computer use, click, go right through to.
Yeah.
I don't know that would preclude you downloading it as a PDF.
I mean, it shouldn't. I was
Yeah.
just thinking in terms of the look.
Yeah.
Right, if it's changes it with the hyperlink, but you can change the color on that. So,
Also, just wanted to note, our statistics come from a number of places. So when we say real time, it would be the real time that we are updating our monthly cardholder statistics. That wouldn't be like somebody signed up for a library card and the number.
That's what I was asking about. I was asking if it was a live feed. From
Okay.
your data.
No,
Spreadsheets in the back, or
because-
whether it
so
was.
for instance, cardholders, we get a report from CCS with how many added, how many withdrawn, and what our total cardholders are. Building visits, that's a separate software that OSG runs a report for us. I mean, we could run one daily. We're not going to do
I'm not
that.
suggesting. that.
But I'm sorry, I just realized, I'm like,
No,
oh,
but
wait,
that's
there
a
is-
big
don't
question.
care. You're not always-
I know, right? I
Yeah.
realized. I'm like, Patrick's like, that's fine. So that then, what we used to do was we used to hand key stuff, and that we need to stop. And so this then, it'll be the report, the spreadsheet will just get added into this and it'll automatically update. Community outreach, this is something that every department does in different ways. So each department will report via a Google form with what their statistics are.
Then at some point, those forms will be uploaded.
And then the forms are directly linked to here. Staff CE, those are another monthly report that each department has to give to administration that Ann Keaton then compiles. But now they're gonna just, every staff member, every time they do something, is gonna just do a form and it'll automatically add and then tabulate everything. Computer use is another software. Wi-Fi is a separate software. Study room use and meeting room use are the same software, but also a separate software, as is program. So as you can see, there are like, I don't know, 7 or 8 different software systems that we use to get data. And so everything isn't in like our main system, which is our integrated library system. And there isn't a way to really combine all of that. That would be the dream,
That would be nice, yes.
but it doesn't
Are you
exist.
going to, I mean, have a sort of like, all these things on the first of every month,
We already do that.
okay.
And so the timeline might shift a little bit because it's going to be actually less work to compile everything because it's going to be more, so we might be able to give staff a little bit more time. So like currently it's by the 5th of the month, you have to have it all turned in. And so, yeah, we will be, and one of the things that we contracted with Mallory for is rewriting all of our procedures that we have based on the new ways that we're going to do things. So the goal is to show this to the board next month and then roll it out with staff and the new processes in May. And then in June, be able to present the board with this beautiful new updated with accurate data.
Very cool.
I also think it's a great PR thing to highlight. Did you know that, we have 20,000 card holders?
Yes.
This means that even little blurbs in the newsletter, because when you did that kind of behind the scenes and explained all what
Oh, yeah.
the numbers mean, it was an aha. I never realized that
Right?
was what we were doing. So any way that it can be explained and highlighted.
100%. We are also adding all of the patron feedback here so that also is available. We shouldn't do this, but let me show you the draft because where's my mouse? Is it here? Oh.
Will
I
there
got
be a
it.
place where it shows
Yeah.
when the last update was, since it's not live?
Yeah, so
Point, yeah.
you can't see it because of the closed captioning. It's right down here.
Last update.
I trust you.
Yes, I promise it is. I guess I could move this up a little. I can't. I don't get it.
I trust you. Really.
Okay. I don't like having a mouse on 2 screens. Mouse is not going easily. Okay. So the patron feedback is going to show obviously all of the feedback, but then you'll be able to categorize it. So if you want to be like, oh, show me all of the stuff related to, collections. We're still cleaning this up some. So yeah, right. I just want to see everything related to collections or to the building. And then that way you can pull all of it up. So if people are interested in something, you can more easily get to it.
It's great.
Yeah, of course, anything personally identifiable will be redacted from this, but yeah, so that's more to come next month.
That's great.
So.
Health insurance update with Anna and Jackie.
The last meeting, Becky reported that health insurance was going to increase on July the 1st. We asked for some changes to be made to the policies, which you agreed to, so we were able to reduce the increase to 11.85%. We were then asked to give some options because this is a pretty significant increase to the staff, almost 12%. I did a calculation and I'm estimating it to be approximately $15,000 for the staff members. The increases are, they're different for single plus spouse, single plus dependent family. Like the amount is going to be different and it'll impact them all a little differently. We are coming to you to ask. You had asked us for some options, so it's $15,000. So option 1 is to have the library cover 100% of the increase for 1 year, just for fiscal year 26. Option 2 would be cover 50% of everyone's increase, whatever that increase would be, like cover that, or option 3 is to not cover any of it and pass it all on to the staff. Right now, the library covers 90% of insurance for every staff member. And if a staff member has dependents, they cover 75% of the dependents coverage. I did reach out to libraries that were in IPBC. I reached out to the village, and then I reached out to a couple of libraries who are not in IPBC. Everybody is seeing increases. Nobody is seeing an increase as great as ours, but they all also said that none of them, they're not changing their percentages. If they have a 90% for employees, you know, they're gonna cover 90%, they're gonna stick with that. I think one thing that Becky and I did learn through all of this is that we need to review the benefit package. We need to do a pretty detailed review of the benefits and what's offered, and find ways within the system to decrease it.
Did you get a sense why ours has gone up like more than other libraries, or?
I did not talk with IPBC, so I cannot answer that question. So I think it's all the plan.
Yeah, and Becky and I did talk with IPBC. We did get data on, you know, all of the IPBC members, and we are luckily not the highest. We're higher than, as Anna mentioned, the other libraries, but there were, I would say, I don't know, over half of the IPBC members were seeing similar increases.
Seems odd
To
that
us,
he's so different.
And I will own that I am not at, you know, IPBC has been an area that I have not done a deep dive into. And I think, you know, as Anna mentioned, you know, and Becky and I have talked, like, this is an area that we need to get a lot more knowledge around, because I think that there are, maybe savings isn't the right word. There are opportunities for us to still have strong coverage for staff while saving the staff and library money. And this has been on my list for quite some time, and I'm sorry that we didn't get to it before we saw these huge increases, but know that Becky and Anna will work on this in the next year and be able to hopefully look at things in a much more granular fashion.
And sorry if you've already covered this, is the 90 and 75% coverage for staff and their dependents, is that pretty similar between other libraries?
Yes. I mean, some libraries do 80-20 for everybody. Some do,
Some don't have
some did
independent coverage.
50-50 if you had dependents.
Okay.
So, you know, so
Yeah.
yes, I think, and we can get more information on that when we do the review.
And part of the 90-10 split is following guidance from, you know, the Affordable Care Act and what we're,
Right.
you know, legally required.
I mean, I don't know. When we joined IPBC many years ago, I'm probably the only person here that was part of that whole transition. The intention was to mirror what the village was doing, because they had more staff that could kind of keep on top of IPBC. Somewhere along the way, that stopped happening. I'm not sure when or how. So, having not been a part of those conversations, so I don't really know, you know, why our increase is so much higher than everybody else's.
And the villages is also,
Not as high as ours,
but
but
theirs was still like, I think, wasn't it like 10 or 12?
it's below 10.
Below 10, okay.
So
Is there any, sorry, Barbara, go.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that I would agree that we should keep it what it is. I think that what's going out in the world is surprises enough in not such great ways all the time. And I think that the study is really needed. But I would not want the staff to have to pay for our not having any information that would cause us to change it. And so I guess I would suggest that we keep the same percentages.
That being said,
Cover all the costs for this
Mhm.
year,
Mhm.
all the increased costs.
so is that the same thing as a percentage covering all the costs?
It was an extra 15,000. Is that what it was?
I mean, I feel like when I've been on the receiving end of this, the percentages may stay the same, but if the cost goes up, it's a shared.
I was about to
Cost.
say, if it's still 90%, but the costs have gone up, that's still more.
Yeah.
That 10% is still higher
Mhm.
than it was.
Right.
Before.
So the 90-10 isn't gonna change, and so
Right.
that, just forget the 90-10 and the 75.
Well, but it will, in theory, because if you're increasing the amount that you're paying for the staff, it will change from 90% to be a higher number for the library.
I guess that's what I'm
This
trying to
year.
delineate,
Mm.
is that there's cover all the costs and there's
Cover-
maintain the percentage breakout, and those aren't same.
Yeah.
That is not the same.
Yeah.
That is
So that-
correct.
Yeah, and the option, in terms of covering all the, cover the increase.
Cover the,
And so that those plan costs are the exact same for staff next year as they are this year.
right.
So I think that,
Which will inevitably change the 90-10 a little bit because we're covering a little
right,
bit
but
more.
I think that then you're covering more than the 90%.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the costs keep going up, then you've set a precedent that you're covering them. And then at a certain point, how close to full coverage do you get? So I guess I'm sort of leaning towards keeping the 90-10, but again, I can be persuaded.
If we kept the 90-10, obviously that would mean costs go up for employees because that 10% is
Yeah.
a bigger number.
And I think the highest cost for a single staff member that has a family plan is like 18, would cost them an additional 1,800. Anna's gonna have the number. I shouldn't be saying
For a
numbers.
family, it would be $75 a month or $900 a year.
For the family.
And we have 4 staff members that have family plans.
That would be what they would now be paying in the.
That
new
would be
year.
an additional
Additional.
900.
Additional
Right,
$900.
That's what I meant, additional $900, which would maintain that 90-10.
Yes.
I would say if we choose to cover the full increase, which would change that 90-10, I think we do need to be careful about setting a precedent. Health insurance costs do tend to go up. And I think it would need to be clear that we're buying a year to figure out how better to manage our health insurance benefits.
Yes.
Because if we felt that 90-10 was a good split, I would say that over the long term, we would want to maintain that.
And I think we talked last month too, in the vein of like exploring other options about adding a high deductible plan
Yes.
and educating staff about the HMO and making sure that they're
Mhm.
making the best choice for themselves. So to your point, Janet, I think if the board does decide to cover the cost this year, there's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
an easy and we're working on this with these options to ensure that this doesn't have to happen annually.
I don't think we can every year say,
No.
oh my goodness, we have to cover the cost.
I think that the danger, I think, is that if you say we're covering more than 90% this year, and then it goes back down to the 90%, that's gonna be seen as a reduction, no matter how
Reduction in
much you
benefits.
exactly, no matter how many times you explain it, I think it's gonna be seen as a reduction.
It
in
will be seen as
benefits.
a reduction, and we will be giving them additional options with, that will have much probably better plans that will often, like, we know that 50% of staff that are on the plan, on the PPO plan, did not meet the $300 deductible. Now, there is significant cost savings to be had if we increase the deductible, and if people aren't meeting it, they probably don't care. They would much rather save money,
Right.
still have good coverage. I think that, yes, that is true. And, Becky has pointed out just how much HMOs have changed and how easy it is now. Where before, like I was on an HMO when I first got out of library school and it was awful because you had to go physically to the doctor's office to get the referral letter and
Those things have changed now, and we are
And-
fortunate, we live in an area that is rich in medical resources, and so if you are in an HMO, and I happen to be in one, and you're in a big network, I mean, there's many providers around.
Yeah.
If you lived in a very small rural town,
yes.
that might be a little bit different.
And there's significant cost savings for staff and for the library, right? Because we would benefit from that too. If people chose to move to an HMO plan. Right now, we have very few people on the HMO, as Becky reported last month.
I think the other danger is none of us know what's going to happen next year. Costs could go up another X%, and then
Correct.
you're not able to, like.
Correct.
So the savings may not be that much. So I feel like it's imprudent to change the 90-10. Just without knowing what's going to be coming forward. And I don't mean for that to sound selfish at all, but I just,
But I also think that given that we've got to address this now, I would say that there has to be a level of accountability from you all in terms of bringing back the information so that we are not zeroed in on whatever the figures are for this year. I mean, Janet said, let's have for this year, this is what we're going to do, and we are going to study. I think that that's critical, but I would also like a high level of accountability on the study and what you would propose going forward.
No, I actually agree with Barbara, and Mara's right. You can explain this kind of thing in great detail and try to make it clear, and
They'll hear what they want.
it will be perceived,
Negatively.
Yeah, and I think that being said, sometimes you do the right thing and you do your best to put it in black and white and to explain it as well as you can, so that if there is confusion, or you can say, well, as you recall, and you have very clear documentation about the plan here.
The question I started to ask earlier, and I don't know that anyone will have an answer to this. If there's been any sense of whether this is going to create heartburn for staff in terms of inequity, because you're essentially giving some people a $900 raise because they've opted in to the library's insurance. And we've talked a lot about pay equity, and we've talked a lot about compensation philosophy, and I have no idea where to go with that question other than, are we giving something to some people that we can't give to others? And does that create a different kind of tension?
But presumably,
yes, we are, and that's the problem with an employer-based healthcare system. So.
So we need to destroy capitalism.
start talking about how we manage healthcare in this country.
I don't see that happening
Yeah.
in the next 3.5 years.
Yeah, we just wait to do that after I come back from vacation.
To destroy capital.
Yeah.
Sure.
Great.
I think, you make a good point. I will say that, when you talk about inequity, I mean, I have presumed that, and I'll talk about full-time staff, always have the choice, and they've made their own choices. And so sometimes that means that there will be different results from benefits rolling out. So.
And I think whatever people are going to feel is valid, and just want to make sure that whatever the response is to whatever decision we make here tonight, that there is space for staff to have those feelings and to express that. And I know you're all exceptional at that, but to recognize that this is a high tension topic because it's people's pay and it's people's compensation. And I know we all at our full-time jobs probably get that letter that's like, here's your actual compensation when we take into account your insurance and your cell phone reimbursement or whatever. And that hits me like you see that.
What do you need from us now?
We just need to know if you want to pay 100%, 50%, 0, because if you say that you're going to leave it at 90-10, then I'm going to take I budgeted and put the funds in group insurance. And what I'll do is I'll take those funds out and put it into salaries and wages. I'll just move that $15,000. So I guess I need we need, I don't need, we need your decision.
There was specifically no recommendation made for this. It's the board's decision what they want to, well, it's always the board's decision, but the board is making the entire recommendation.
I just didn't know what action
Yeah.
we were going
Yeah,
to
so,
take.
so as I see it, I know you had outlined some things. It's, of the three, I didn't see the maintain the 90-10.
It
Did I
was
miss
the
it?
last option.
Yeah.
It was, I guess we
I didn't-
never
I-
put
The wording was either
Right, do
cover
not
all of
cover
it.
any
I didn't,
of the.
it wasn't
increased
worded as a
costs.
90-10.
Yeah,
Full disclosure, I ended up finishing up the memo while, on Friday to get this out to the board. So Anna and Becky gave me all the information and then I wrote it up.
Because
So,
keeping the 90-10 doesn't mean we're not paying some more, because obviously
Yeah.
the whole thing's
The
going
90
up.
yeah, so we're-
100%.
You know,
Yeah,
so-
whatever.
Yeah, so the-
90%, so there is an upcharge in what.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, so we still have a 12% increase for all of the costs that we're
Right.
covering. And so the way I worded it was cover all increase costs for staff. And so we would cover the costs for medical and dental for the HMO and PPO plans so that the costs would remain the same. And then it would be cover half. And I didn't calculate what the percentage, or do not cover, and then
and that just keeps it
That
at the
keeps it
same
as-
90-10.
do not cover any of the increase costs for staff. And so it would keep it at the 90-10.
I move that we keep the coverage, I don't know if we want to say 90-10, but we keep the coverage as is, picking up whatever the additional charges are.
What does that percentage come out to be instead of
I
being?
I
90%,
didn't
you
really
know?
calculate that. I'm trying to do it right now and I'm not having very good luck with my phone calculator, yeah. I mean, if we cover the 15,000, it will change the percentage.
It would not change it by, I mean, it's
Yeah,
15,000 for
91%.
everyone on staff. So like, let's just take, we know it's $900 for the family coverage plan. Anna's gonna do the math.
I do, I think
Try it.
I'm thinking about what Stacy said about the equity and things, and it doesn't seem like it's sort of in keeping with that, and that it's not. And that's the nature of insurance, like when it's done this way, it's hard to make it equitable, but
Our part-time staff would tell us that it is not equitable at all because they don't have access to it.
at all.
Only full-time staff do.
And maybe that's something that you look at it, maybe it's a different percentage for, that's sort of what I think most schools do. If you're part-time, it's a larger,
Percentage.
you're paying a much larger percentage, but, yeah, it's worth it for some people.
So it looks like it's, I mean, to me, it feels like it's boiling down to, we, go ahead for 1 year and sort of cushion the increase so that employees are not feeling that increase with I've got to say, a very clear understanding that there's got to be, we cannot always do that. And so there needs to be some,
When
I
you
would
say 1
disagree.
year,
Yeah,
no, I
but-
just say,
yeah.
it has to say 1 year.
Right there.
For the following,
written
for the
down.
coming year,
I mean.
this is the rate.
Yeah,
It
and
will be,
with a
followed
clear
by a
understanding
study,
that
yeah.
you will be granularly looking at the plans and finding, you
Mhm.
hope, some ways to,
I think there is.
identify savings.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
full knowledge, our notes, that people do hear what they want to hear, and it can be hard. Nevertheless, all you can do is make it as clear as you can.
It's gonna be hard now, or it's gonna be hard next year.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard either way.
Yeah, I would say we keep the 90-10. I think having a weird percentage of, because you're essentially giving people a bonus, or they're gonna see it as, I don't know what it is.
It's
It comes
gonna
out
be
to
like
92.
8.9% or 9% to the employee. I'm just talking for single coverage. It'll be 9% and 91%.
So
So it's a 1% difference.
Yeah, I think you leave it at the 90-10, and then you don't have the discussion next year of why it's going down, but that would be my vote.
You want to make an official motion?
I don't think anyone agrees with me, but sure, I'll make a motion that we.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm gonna make a motion that we leave the 90-10 as is, and we also share with staff that we are looking for ways to reduce costs in the upcoming year.
Is that definitive enough? I mean, is it the language that we want to be sure we can live with?
Do I have to specify that the library is not absorbing the 12% increase? Is that the way I say it?
That
again,
is for the staff, right?
Yeah.
They are
that
not
is-
absorbing.
That is the way
50,000.
I'm sort of seeing it. I don't think I'm in a majority here, so
That we are not absorbing?
that's what I'm saying. I think
Maura
we are
is
not on
saying
the same
that
page.
staff will have a 12% increase in the insurance costs. I think what you were saying was we will absorb the 12% for 1 year.
Right.
Maura has a motion on the table though, so.
Is there a second?
Given that it's a 1% change. Maybe and then this was actually one of the proposals, split the difference so that it's a.
But I had a motion on the floor that,
Okay, so
Was
there's competing
interrupted.
motions.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
so no, that's
Okay,
okay.
yeah.
So I'm gonna go
I
back
was
to
gonna put a
that,
third one on there.
which is we will cover the $15,000, keeping it at the 90-10. We will absorb
It
that.
is not keeping it at 90-10.
Well, whatever it is, keeping it, we will absorb
The
whatever the
increased cost.
$15,000 cost, so that this current rates
We'll maintain for the next year.
for the next year only.
I'm just concerned about what happens when it goes up another 12% then the next year.
But I think that there can be a lot of conversations, including input from staff as the study goes on, so that nobody's gonna be surprised.
I think there's a lot of education that we need
Mhm.
to do. And that I think will benefit staff and help them save money.
And be creative as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
I think we're just giving them a buffer until we've got our act together.
Well, I mean, I know there's two motions on the floor. Let me just toss one in there.
Yeah, please.
And this was one of the ones that they suggested, which was splitting the difference. It doesn't cover it still creates the philosophical problem you're talking about. And it doesn't make every employee whole, but given that it is, and do jump in if I'm wrong, really a 1% shift here, we're talking 90-10 to 91, 9. Given that, could you do 90.5 and 9.5? I know, and so that would buffer staff a little, but wouldn't be entirely taking that jump.
it would take the increase down to 6%, which is a more typical
That is fairly typical.
increase.
Yeah.
What is so for a individual, what's the yearly on the PPO? So it's 900 additional for a family.
For an individual, it's $12 a paycheck or $13 a paycheck. And so annually, it's like $152.
That seems like pretty minimal.
So that would be
Costs
for.
go up. I don't think having your insurance go up 126
Yeah.
for an individual. And if most of the people are individual and not.
Right.
I mean, a 6% increase is not, it's kind of what I'm pretty used, my
It's pretty
job's 5,
typical.
6.
Right.
I like it. But
No,
it is-
none of us like it.
But I think we have to be cognizant that the 900 is only for people on the staff. It's not for majority of the town staff.
And I would further add that if we split the difference, I would maintain the plan to look at things more granularly, think about a high deductible.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Anyway.
I mean,
Yeah, we did that before.
We agreed
that
that
is,
last-
that is absolutely happening,
Yeah.
100%. Regardless of anything that's just
Yeah.
like, that is definitely
Right.
something that has.
I moved that. we
Wait, I
absorb-
think Barbara technically needs to withdraw her motion. If you're going to move, doesn't she?
Well,
Or we need to vote on it.
Well, technically, it doesn't have a second.
Oh, great, so we're done. Okay.
So it,
But you didn't call for one.
They also have free will. Is there a second on Barbara's motion? Seeing none.
Die peacefully.
Do we have to do the same for my motion? Let it die? Or-
there's already tied.
It already died, okay.
I'm so
right.
sorry,
No, it's
Laura.
fine,
I'm so
it's
sorry.
fine.
Do you?
Okay.
I'll give it a go. I move that the library absorbs half, I think I'm saying this correctly, someone jump in if I'm doing this wrong, half of the increased cost of the insurance for the next year. With the, coupled with a granular examination of opportunities to bring overall costs down for the library and for employees.
So Janet has
Can I
motion.
ask you to weigh in on what you just mentioned? Is it?
It's just gonna get tricky. I mean, I kind of agree with Stacy a little bit that we're talking about $45 staff members that you're going to be helping while the other 80,
Yeah.
75 are not getting anything.
And that's why.
So-
Sorry.
Because
Can
they
I-
don't get health insurance.
Because
I
they're
have-
part-time.
I have,
Or
what
because
is,
they've, you said there's like
what-
2 who have not opted for.
We have 3 people who have not opted into insurance.
Well, that is a choice.
um,
So
But not the
So-
people who are part-time, that's. not-
part-time, that's not a
So-
choice, correct?
we have the $15,000 in the budget. I'm gonna make a suggestion, which might be a really horrible idea. It's not a suggestion. I'm gonna put forward another idea. It sounds like there is the equity piece, which I think is very, very valid. I think there is also this is gonna impact staff, right? If you have someone making $50,000 a year and have a family, and are paying an extra 900, that is gonna hit a lot harder than me, who it's me and my husband and my salary. That we have to recognize that piece of it, this is gonna hit harder for some staff than for others. So something that we could do is take the 15,000 that we have in the budget that Anna was talking about moving into the personnel line and just dividing it evenly across everyone on staff. And then it gives the staff that money upfront as essentially a bonus that staff that have insurance could use to help offset the increased cost, or they could not, and then it provides a little extra in addition to the 4% increase that we're offering. But
I'm
that,
confused by, I'm not following your proposal at all.
so we have $15,000 that we have set aside to cover this cost in the group insurance line.
Okay, so we have
That's
an
money-
increase in the budget of 15,000 is what we have though, right? It's
I
not
mean-
like we found $15,000 in the budget. We have an increase of 15,000.
No, the money was in the budget.
Okay.
And it would be either in, salaries and wages or in group health insurance. So the money is there.
Okay.
We could just take that money, split it evenly amongst everyone on staff to offset, for people to use however they choose. And then we aren't deciding we're using it for this, you're using it for that. And it wouldn't be based on the percent, it wouldn't be like, oh, well, we can add an additional blank percent increase to the 4% cost of
But then
living
you've got the
increase.
same issue of next year where like people are gonna say, well, where is that bonus or whatever? I mean, it's not a bonus, but where is that money? And it's not gonna be something that's shared every year.
That is 100%
Yeah.
true. And we have done this, was it 2 years ago? When was the gas prices really?
Maybe 2 years.
2 years ago, when the gas prices got really, really insane. And we did a one-time offset to cover. Anna, help me with, you're still trying to calculate numbers.
It was the cost of living.
It was the cost of, it
Like
was,
skyrocketed and we did an adjustment. A one-time bonus
flat.
adjustment.
Yeah, just a flat amount.
Yeah.
It was,
And it was like mid-year.
you've seen data, you've seen the info on it,
Yeah.
yeah.
This would be $134 a person.
Oh,
divided
thank you.
amongst everyone. I think your COLA payment was more than that.
It was. So is 134, is that gonna,
Minus taxes.
yeah, or are people gonna feel like, wow, thanks for
Yeah.
a whole lot of nothing? I'm not sure. That was just an idea that
No,
like, it seems like,
It addresses the equity piece of it.
yeah. Although I do think equity doesn't necessarily mean equality.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, you know, again, you're giving,
hard.
I mean, should you be giving the exact same amount to part-time and full-time people? I mean, that's something to
Right.
think about.
And this is I mean, everything related to pay and benefits is deeply personal.
Yeah.
So any decisions we make are going to be felt by staff anytime you make any changes. You know, people were very upset about the switch. Not very. We had a handful of staff that were very upset about the switch in the number of pay periods, even though we offset that. And that is to be expected. I would expect that anytime we are
Anytime there's change.
making a change to someone's livelihood, even if it's benefiting them, that is still, and this is, you know, there is no easy decision with when costs are increasing like this. And other than getting rid of capitalism, which I don't know that we have the power to do.
I'm sorry, I don't want to make my computer's misbehaving. Wasn't one of the proposed solutions of 50%?
50% of the increase?
Yeah.
Yes. that was
Yes,
one of the-
Okay, but and you think that's tricky? Oh, sorry, she's still doing math.
I think it's changing the 1090 split.
It is, but I thought it would be less than
Mhm.
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. it was fun.
it
I
would
mean,
just
it's
be
do it for
it's changing the 1090 split.
by like a
Yeah.
sort of a half percentage point. As
Yes.
I-
We're not gonna,
Mm.
I know we've been talking about the 1090 split. I would not want us messaging it this way because I think that is really confusing and seems very permanent. The policy clearly says we cover this way. This is a one-time thing that we are doing to offset costs. We're not changing how much we're offering. We would be doing a one-time trying to help mitigate. So I wouldn't actually say like, we're changing it, so it'll actually be 91, not like, no. We are covering the additional increases. We're covering half of the
Then
additional
next year,
increases.
when you don't cover the increases,
People will be upset.
people will be upset.
But
And
you
I
may
think
have a
we
different
don't
plan
know.
to offer.
We will.
You might, but again, they're
We will.
not gonna, if that's what they want, and we don't know what's gonna be happening with insurance. It could
It could.
skyrocket. There are so many unknowns right now. I hate to be setting a precedent. I would almost rather see the 15,000 split between the 80 part-time employees who don't have insurance. So,
is
I mean, if
another
we're just talking about being, fair and equitable, which only gives them.
I just don't think
It's like
by
less than
doing
$200,
it,
but
it sets a precedent. I think it says, we've got this decision we have to make now. We're responding to a situation that we had no control over, nor did we have time to come together with another plan for you. And so while we're doing all of this, we're going to offset the costs. I don't think it has anything to do with permanently I mean, this came up quickly. There was no time to say, well, if 2 people use HMO or 3 people use PPO, there was no time to do anything else.
Can I ask in a general, roughly, I mean, presumably, because it certainly doesn't my job, every year their costs have gone up.
Yes.
Okay,
They've typically gone up like between 4% and 6%. I think Becky might have that.
Anna did some great research. IPBC has been a great partner and actually keeping rates down for the last 5 years. Some years in 2021, 22, there was actually a decrease in the premium, which is pretty phenomenal. But I think it's kind of like what Kate said, preferred deferred maintenance. We're seeing kind of an upsurge in usage, and the memo that IPBC sent also said that prescription costs have gone up. They specifically cited GLP-1 semaglutide medications. So they've just seen a huge uptick in that. And I think they were kind of caught off guard, is my hypothesis, just my theory, that's why the increases are so large, because they've been kind of on the back foot. And now things are kind of catching up to us. But they have overall been trying to keep costs down for the last 5 years, and Anna has done some good data on that. And I think once we look at the full spectrum of options, I predict we can mitigate costs and keep them cost effective for the library and staff. But we're kind of at a pain point right now. It's very acute. Other people in our boat, but we're feeling it very acutely right now
What
as
was
well.
the increase last year, for instance?
3.2% for PPO, which is more in 1.1% for HMO.
So if we would look at what an average increase per year
Before this.
before this
Want to apply that?
and
But don't, we don't use it. You're saying use, okay, so I
Oh,
did
right.
do that.
Yeah.
I think if I looked at this number.
I mean, it's no fun, but then if we could
Mhm.
keep it like,
So if you look
Typical,
at
yeah.
the last, like the years before, it was 9%.
and last year it was like 3 or 1%.
Right.
Golly.
So over, if you go
Is
from
the average? for the last
2021 through that's the average, that would be.
so if I were to get my insurance as a staff member now, I could expect or should anticipate at least 8 or 9% higher, right?
I mean, yeah,
Or whatever the percentage is. And so therefore, I wouldn't be surprised if that was to occur this year.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is maybe offset the costs beyond what would be
An
an
average
anticipated
increase.
raise.
Yep. Yep. And to an employee, it would feel like a pretty normal year. I mean, like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, my health insurance costs are going up as they do
Yeah.
for all of us. But
Right.
not this big
Mhm.
spike. And we can soften that blow. And again, work on some ways to, that would be my suggestion. I know that right now you probably don't have the math on what that would,
Mhm.
presumably less than 15,000. I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it would be
How do
covering.
you feel about that?
Yeah.
I mean, I can live with it, but I would also just say that as we're moving forward and you're exploring different things, I'd like to see
Mhm.
us explore giving an option of insurance to part-time, even if it's a much greater, they're paying a much greater percentage of it. I think we should.
It's on the
give that
list to
option.
look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is my idea, is that from the employee perspective, they would experience a jump as much as they do every year
Mhm.
and not this sharp jump in 1 year.
I think it's fine.
Stacey, what are your thoughts?
I like that idea. I think that's more realistic and seems more like on track, like, because yes, my health insurance expenses have gone up too, like everybody's have, but 12% does feel like a lot to shift back to staff. So Janet, are you saying to cover
Well,
3% of the 12% increase then?
I guess, I mean, I was saying, what is the average for, I don't know, the last 5 years? And
Anna said that was 9.
yeah, and then,
For the PPO.
Yes.
for the HMO, it would be 0.
Can you do calculus?
Everyone though?
What?
Do you do it across everyone or? it changes
Yeah,
per
I'm
person?
looking at the HMO and in July of 21, HMO rates went down 7%. In July of 22, they went down another 1%. In July of 23, they went up 7.25%.
So we
In
should be
July of
giving
24, they went up
Giving
1%.
staff
So
money.
it's like for the HMO, it's almost like 0. So then you wouldn't be giving anything to those staff. You would be giving stuff to the people who are in the PPO. I mean,
Which
it's.
seems really problematic, I gotta say.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing it as if you're doing it as a sort of a cost of living, it really seems problematic to give it to the staff who are getting the HMO and not giving it to the staff who are in the.
Right, if you're looking at the average for the last 4 years, it would be 0 for the HMO, and they're gonna see a 4% increase.
So then we would cover 4%.
I mean, let me just say
Well, no,
that.
they're saying you wouldn't cover
Yeah.
anything for the HMO.
Oh, right.
Because
No,
the
I agree
average
with
was
that.
0.
Yeah.
So they would get a 4% increase. But then the PPO people would see a 9% increase.
Well, again, it is a choice, which
Right.
health insurance plan you pick, and people who choose PPOs understand that they have higher costs.
When is open enrollment? I can't believe I'm asking this out loud. When is open enrollment? Like, could people still switch now if you did?
Well, open enrollment is until July the first. For us, it's July.
No, it opens middle of May to end of May.
It's good
beginning of
timing
June.
then,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's done.
So
July.
it would, people, considering
the
their
decision
options,
to- yep.
looking at what HMO is, looking at PPO is,
Yeah.
they can make a different decision. And that is a decision we all have to make. So.
And there are two HMOs now, so we even have an even larger network since you approved to add an HMO at the last meeting, so we have bigger options now.
I'm just gonna go out and say that an HMO, if you've got a serious chronic disease, an HMO isn't really gonna be your best bet. And so
Mhm.
again, we're not being, that's not an option for everyone.
True.
I have no
So-
ideas, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just being.
This, we have the money in the budget. The board could, is there other information that would help make this decision
I mean, I guess, yeah, they don't
easier?
have to make.
You don't have to make a
tonight.
decision
We
this
can
month if
wait.
you'd like to wait,
Yeah.
and if there's other information that we can provide. Or if you'd like it, because then,
But we probably do
Bring
need
the
the
messaging.
information before open enrollment starts.
I was
so
gonna
that
say, you
staff
don't want it
have-
last
we have to
minute,
tell
right?
staff
I mean,
before
starts,
open
yeah.
enrollment,
So we should
so
have
it would
it
have to be
before
at the next
May.
month's
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, we would have to have a decision in
I
April.
wish we had our other board members here, just because I feel like.
Right.
It's just.
And maybe this would be something if we could say this is option, like if you could put together, this is option 1, 2, or 3, so that the other board members would be able to sort of answer right away. I hate to give you more work.
Do you,
no, like-
you want different options than the one that we already?
No, just
or
spell
like
out
what
the options that we.
Well, they
talked
kind
about.
of did that in there, what they gave us already, so.
But we've just talked about a
Yeah.
bunch of
Yeah.
different options today, like.
Right. So what would the board like to see?
I mean, I don't know if the 4 of us need to see anything else because we were here. It's just for the board members who weren't here. They're gonna be
Okay.
playing catch up, and I think or maybe it's just having a conversation with them about to get them caught up to speed.
We could also share the recording.
Oh, that's
They
true
could
too.
listen to
Yes,
this fun
this-
conversation.
exactly.
Yeah.
That works too.
So it,
You're gonna be on vacation. next
I know.
Sorry, Kelly.
I'm gonna miss it.
I think we really need to be really clear of what we want to see.
Yes.
That, to help Anna.
Yes.
I mean, we've been sort of like back of envelope, I mean, kind of,
Yes.
oh, I think it'll cost this or a percentage of that. I think it would be good to, unless, I mean, you really don't think it's gonna work. I mean, what exactly would the situation be if you essentially artificially created on the part of employees their kind of normal increase? What would that look like? What would that cost us? What would that, so it would feel the same to them, no matter what they're in. What would that cost us? What would that, what would that average be? What would that, that's one thing, I guess.
So we want to see a scenario, a fourth option with the average of the normal increase over the last
4 years.
4 years.
4 years?
For
I mean,
each of, for the
I'm open
HMO,
to-
PPO and dental,
Sure, I mean, yeah.
because each has a different increase.
Do you feel like 4 years is sensible?
Yes,
Okay,
I think anything more is gonna,
yeah, too far.
I mean, and that's what I've already done that,
Yeah.
so I have
Yeah.
that data. I just need to
And I think
calculate the numbers.
another option is just wiping out the increase entirely. But in a little way, that's a little artificial. That doesn't actually happen in a normal year. So you sort of already had that option. And then there's the,
Leaving the percentages.
yeah, the percentages. How would that break out?
If you leave the percentages as is, the increase for.
Which is option 3 now.
Yeah, leaving it 90-10. Yeah.
What am I missing?
That's it.
Anything else anyone wants to see next month when we revisit?
And if you think of anything else, think of it quick, so they have time to pull it together.
I mean, the dollar amount is not, I don't think it's the dollar amount that's the issue.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the $15,000.
Yeah.
But it's just what happens next year and the perception to everyone.
Yeah.
That's really what
Setting
the issue
precedents,
is.
what kind of precedents you want to set, what kind of,
Because if every time there's a double-digit increase, what are we gonna do?
what are we gonna do? We can't keep saying, okay, well, we'll just pick up the.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what the issue is.
Yeah.
Your 26 budget, sorry.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I had to make some changes to the budget that I presented last month. Wait, let me find those notes. Have them somewhere. Okay, so the changes, I made some changes and I'm gonna just summarize the changes that were greater than $5,000. I adjusted payroll, the payroll number to reflect staffing decisions for our technical services and circulation departments and the facility department with the decision made to outsource facility management to ABM. Unemployment insurance decreased because we received actual cost data from Cook and Coker. Staff development funds increased because the public library conference is going to be in the spring of 2026, and it's a conference that staff like to attend, so we try to put some extra money there.
It's in Minneapolis.
Materials, I adjusted that number as well to accommodate selector requests and additional outside processing costs. Programming, we changed the number based upon a review of the department requests and looking at historical spending trends. General insurance number decreased because of the cost data received from Cook and Coker. Professional services increased because of the decision to outsource facility management. Contracted services, I received some additional final costs for some of our contracted services that I changed the number for that. And then furniture and equipment, I increased it a little bit because we've paused the master plan. So, I mean, the number overall didn't change. I just shifted numbers throughout all the different lines.
And we have contingencies.
Always, always. So, but I do need the budget to be approved because I have to give it to the village so that they can finalize.
I'll move to approve the budget.
I'll say
Thank you.
Can we just make sure that we add for the recording, this number, so that we state it, it's supposed to say.
10,344,000 for fiscal year 26.
Okay. Ms. Christian,
Yes.
Ms. Oliver,
Yes,
Ms. Dr. Bishop,
Yes.
Ms. Unical.
Yes.
that was lightning fast after the agenda item before. It wasn't clear.
I know. And it's a fraction of the dollar amount.
What just happened? Okay, great. Moving into new business. Board nominating committee appointments. Are you doing this or am I?
You can do it. We just need 3 people.
And 3 showed up, so we have our nominator.
There you go.
This is the process that we go through annually, where a committee of 3 people will meet twice during the month of April and make recommendations of nominations for a slate of officers at the May board meeting.
But should it be an officer? I mean, if you're thinking I'm one of the 3 people.
Well, Barbara's also, we don't have a way around that really
Okay,
with the
yeah.
number of board members we have.
Right.
Thanks, Barbara. We can also reach out to Nimesh and Jamie to see if they're interested. You're all not on the hook.
I can do it too.
I'm happy to do it, but do you want to ask Nimesh? I mean, I know he's going through a rough time right now, but he just hasn't, he hasn't done something like this. I just wondered if you might,
We can ask them.
but I'm happy to do it.
Okay, I will reach out. And then we will ask Jennifer to tolerate us and help schedule. Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, did I miss anything, Beth?
No, I will send out, after we talk to Nimesh, what the usual process is that Kelly and Jennifer will oversee.
It was very crazy.
It's easy, yeah. Fun, it's fun. Okay, maybe not fun, but yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, moving on to the quarter 4 pulse survey presentation with Becky.
Okay, I'm up. Right. And we're off. Okay, so I am back with the Q4 pulse survey. This is my 3rd time doing a pulse survey. We've had Q1 all the way to Q4, so a full year of pulse surveys, and I'm here to share some of the findings and where we go from here. All right, so this pulse survey was conducted way back in January 2025, the middle of January 17th to be exact, and people had 3 weeks to complete it. It was a follow-up to Q3, Q2, Q1, as well as the 2023 EDI baseline survey that Lily Zhang did for the library. We kept the design completely the same. The questions mirrored exactly Q3. The only demographic questions we asked people to self-identify are their departments. And we also have qualitative comments again as Q3. Okay, it was sent to 110 staff members, 77 of which completed the survey. This makes a participation rate of 70%. We had a completion rate of 68% at the Q3 survey, so we are charting upwards slowly but surely, 70% completion rate. And interestingly, for Q4, we received 37 comments. In the last survey, Q3, I received 14 comments, so a pretty big uptick in the number of comments. And so I am very appreciative of all the comments that were submitted. Culture Amp is a platform that we use, and they do a very good job providing robust privacy protections so that I cannot identify who is submitting the comments. And I appreciate the staff who did, give their feedback. 22% of participants left a comment. That's up from 12% on Q3. And the median number of comments per commenter were 2 per commenter. All right. So in your report, you'll see a more detailed breakdown of the progress that has been made all the way back from the baseline up to Q4. But really bringing it to a super high level view of kind of where we're standing from the work that we've done from the beginning. And by we, I mean, of course, Kelly, Anna, and Kate have been here from the beginning. I've kind of started, while it's been in progress. So you can see there's been some modest progression since the baseline. I would be remiss if I did not mention that from Q3 to Q4, we did see some significant declines in the scores between 7 to 10 basis points, particularly in the areas of staff to leadership respect, psychological safety as a category, meaning that people could feel that they could voice a contrary opinion or provide feedback without the fear of negative consequences. So we have seen, incremental increases over time, but of course you'll see from your report, there were some significant decreases. And in the appendix section at the back page, we detail some of the environmental factors. You'll probably remember January 25 was kind of a turbulent time, to say the least, for the library in terms of rolling out ADP, water leakage. We are also in the transition of finding out facilities transition. We're doing an exploratory process for technical services and circulation. So there's a kind of a lot kind of in the mix. All right. I do want to highlight this yellow section here. So 4 out of the 6 kind of statements that we asked staff to indicate if they agree or strongly agree. We have scores in the 70s for 70 and above for 4 of the 6 questions. From when I've talked with Lily Zhang, this is kind of where we want to see ourselves being, 70 to in the 80s. So having 4 out of the 6 areas are doing pretty strong. These are in the areas of staff capacity, fair division of workload. So I think the library has done, and our management team has done a great job of really looking at how staff are feeling on a day-to-day basis, workload distribution, how the people feel are evaluated. But of course, as I mentioned, this is not, news. I mentioned it in Q3 as well, that we are actively listening to the feedback. We hear it all, and we are wanting to explore and find what we can do to, increase the feeling of psychological safety and staff to leadership respect. So these are the recommendations that were in the brief: address leadership perception issues, strengthen psychological safety. All right. In terms of next steps, you're getting a preview of this report tonight. Our management team has already seen this report. Kate and Kelly and Anna presented on it. We're going to share it in the next all staff meeting. Staff are going to read this report as well. And then we are definitely, we're not sitting by content with the scores. We are actively engaging with Lily Zhang when we got these results to say, what can we do to really find out what can leadership do to address these perception issues? And so we will be doing targeted staff outreach. As I mentioned, people can select their demographic group in terms of their department. And so while we're not going to individually, ask people questions, we can disaggregate the data by department, and we can do confidential outreach to staff. And we are engaging with Lily Zhang, because even though I'm the only person that can see Culture Amp, we do feel it'd be more impactful for people to know that their responses or feedback to Lily will be completely confidential. So staff will hear more about our plans next week. And then Lily Zhang will be doing a larger DEI follow-up assessment later in 2025. And in talking to Lily, we want to really see what we can gain from doing some really direct staff outreach first, take some actions before doing a much larger assessment. So we can really see what we can do to move the needle, really kind of find out what's behind some of the sentiment, really dig deeper. It's a library. We got to find the information however we can, and we're listening. So that's the report. Welcome any questions or feedback.
Did you get any information from the comments that were relevant, that were practical, constructive?
It can be a little hard to glean exactly because not knowing who the individuals are, and it's very much a point in time. But I think there's an overall kind of reluctance for staff to voice feedback. So really trying to dig deeper with this targeted outreach to what might be some of the kind of the stories behind that reluctance. ADP, we did have staff call out, not feeling comfortable with the new time clock system, just being kind of uncomfortable with the rollout. And as we all know, it did not go seamlessly. So I think that's a very, very valid feedback that it was not a smooth transition. Our capacity numbers are up, but some departments have felt under capacity, which we're hoping to address further. So it's hard to, without knowing who those individuals are, but still there's some feedback we can dig deeper into. But I think with this direct outreach to staff, knowing that they can completely, that none of us on leadership are going to view the data directly. Hopefully that will really give us some actionable items, is my hope, that we're truly listening. We want to see what we can do, actionable or constructive to improve, and then really go from there to build on all the work that has been done, as you know, since 2023.
When you say targeted outreach, how targeted are you? I mean, you're talking focus groups? Are you talking literally calling up one person? I mean, Lily calling up.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be a very short 2-question department specific focused survey that only Lily can and their group can see.
And it's going to only be qualitative data. It's a
free form, not like the scoring, like.
No, I
we see.
understand. I mean,
So, yeah.
but I was interested in the comment. It looks like they had at least 2 opportunities to do qualitative commenting, right?
Mhm.
What were most of the times when I've seen these surveys, there's one opportunity and generally the question is, do you have anything else you want to say? Since there were 2, what were they asked?
6, actually.
6? Wow,
They can leave a comment after each statement to kind of explain
I got it.
why they scored, disagree, or strongly
I got it.
disagree, or
Okay.
agree, yeah.
Got it.
I trust Lily. I've enjoyed working with Lily. For me right now, what feels important is making sure that these questions are forward-looking. I feel like we've spent a lot of time looking at historical information from the staff. And it's really important to me that the focus be on what can we change versus what is it that you're carrying that we haven't been able to help you let go of? And I don't need to see the questions, like that's not the level of intrusiveness I want. But I also am hopeful that whatever this targeted outreach is can be a boundary of we are moving forward now and this is the direction we're going.
I agree, 100%. It's like the train just keeps standing in the station with the same comments. It may be just one person or 2 people, but I think that get on board because we're moving forward and either move with us or take yourself someplace else because it doesn't do any good to just spin your wheels and you'll spend a lot of energy spinning your wheels. You're not moving forward. And we've heard all these things before and it's not constructive.
One of the questions we use, and when we survey where I work, we only have one qualitative opportunity. Because they do tend to start to get very repetitive. And what we ask is, what's one thing you would change? That's it. And it kind of funnels and shapes the responses and makes them constructive, actually.
I was going to say, I would add to that, and how will you be a part of that change? Because it's one thing to say, you fix it. It's another thing to work on it together. So I think it's great to say, what would you like to change? But the responsibility is on both of us. It's not just you that has to fix yourself. It really has to be, I'm making that commitment and that'll get me to move forward because I'm part of that change.
I think you'll all be happy to hear that. So we had our leadership touch base with Lily last week, I think. And time just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. And we all very much express the exact same things that you're talking about here and have qualitative questions that we're asking that are forward thinking, that aren't, why are you unhappy, but are very focused on, and each department has slightly different needs in terms of like what we're trying to understand, but what can leadership do in order for you to say that, yes, I feel like I can voice a contrary opinion. And those aren't the actual wording, but it is okay, you are saying this, you have to kind of lean into it and say, you have to show up and we're willing to show up. And what can we do together to move it forward?
What are you going to do to overcome that? Because otherwise your choice is sit in a corner and don't contribute or ask or in any way be a part of change. Or you can say, I am willing to contribute to a conversation or a discussion. It's not just you fix it. It's here's what I'm going to do as part of the team.
I think about that a lot. I have a vendor that I work with regularly who asks me for edits, and then I will often get comments back of that's outside scope. Then tell me what you can do. And so I think about some of these questions of just asking, what do you want leadership to do? Also isn't fair because they may not realize what the limitations are in terms of budget, board, community. There needs to be some guardrails in asking these questions so that you're also not giving them the space to create an unattainable wish list. I asked this vendor to Photoshop pants on a student and they said that's outside scope. turns out it was. But then I said, can you blur the logo on this cup? And they 100% were able to do that. And it was like, once we started to say, this is what our designers have the skills to do, we got on the same page about what we could ask for. And I love qualitative data. I think it's really helpful, but I also, like I said, there has to be some guardrails so that it doesn't just become, well, if I was Kate, I would do this, and I wish Kelly would do this, because she can get away with whatever she would, like, we know.
And I think you make such a good point, Stacy. I've certainly found when I've been doing surveying that many staff, with reason, don't necessarily know
Yeah.
all the way things
their job.
operate. It's not their job to know. And so they will often talk about things they would like that, you know, I know, or that, you know, that we can't do that. And so part of it, I always take away from these surveys is, where do I need to educate folks? Where do I need, we have a common issue that staff often bring up around certain kinds of way we compensate people. They don't really understand. And so we go out to all of our sites and we walk through it with all of them, because we understand that's a misinformation gap that we need to correct. I would also say that I don't know how Lily asks the questions, but one thing I have found very helpful, in part because it can be hard, I can voice a contrary opinion, constructive feedback, or resolve conflict with library leadership without fear. One of the questions we used to ask in focus groups is, what would it look like if you could? Because we often found that people had very different ideas about what that meant.
Well, and what does negative consequence mean to
Yes,
people?
what did that
Because-
mean? And what did you mean by,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
to me, a negative consequence is, I'm going to fire you. I'm going to demote you. I am going to, like.
so that's
is
part of the challenge, is understanding what they mean by that. And
Yeah.
I mean, just taking, I feel respected and valued by library leadership. What would that look like if you were? What we sometimes would find, not all the time, is for some people, that meant they take all my suggestions.
Yes.
And it's good to understand that that's how they interpret being valued. Then maybe you can work on ways to help them, feel heard and respected, with an understanding that you might, or you might not, take every suggestion that they offer.
So I had an interesting conversation with a manager this week who had been talking with her staff about something, and someone, they had gone through a process of something they were talking about changing in the department, and a staff member had offered an idea and they didn't end up going that route. And the staff member was very upset. And the manager said, it made me realize that they felt that by us not doing their suggestion, that we did not respect them.
Exactly.
And that was like, wow.
Right.
And getting that understanding of, oh, that's how the person was perceiving it.
That's right. So you think around, how can you make that person feel valued? You can listen, you can take the time to explain, why didn't we take your suggestion? Let me talk you through. As I said, I think it's always useful information to understand what people mean when they say, I'm not respected, or I am upset, or, because people mean so many different things.
They do.
Yeah.
But again, what are they gonna do? I'm not gonna let us get away without ownership being on both sides.
Yeah.
I can hear that you are disappointed that we did not take your suggestion. What might you do to change it or come back at it, or their parts?
Is
Again,
that more appropriate for a review sort of question, or is that appropriate for a survey? I guess, are they two different sort of things?
I think that you can follow up with that, but I think that whatever the situation is, it's gotta be dual ownership. It's not just you fix it, or I'm angry because you didn't choose it. Where does that leave us? That's a lose-lose. Well, I understand. So I'll validate your feelings, but what can we do going forward? It's gotta be two, gotta be owned.
Yes. Any other feedback, questions about the pulse survey?
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
And we have no closed session this evening. Wild. Agenda building. Agenda building for April includes resolutions for outgoing board members, pay equity audit, executive director review next steps. Becky's going to bring salary compensation or salary comparison data, statistics dashboard presentation, trustee appointments, staff development day, check-in on payroll changes in ADP, fiscal year 26 meeting date approval, and transfer of funds to debt service and CIF. Is there anything anyone else would like to add? That's
What are you going on with? Yeah.
Being nothing else, we will adjourn at 8:56 PM.
Woohoo.